If you're new here, welcome. My name is Holly. About a year and a half ago, I decided to try the carnivore diet as an experiment. I wanted to see what the hype was about, if I would feel better, if I'd have more energy, and just to kind of test things out and to kind of challenge myself. So I decided to do it. I was very strict, very, careful about it. 1 month into the carnivore experiment of mine, I developed an issue where I started waking up at 3 a.m. This is not because I'm just so full of life and energy and I feel amazing and I don't need sleep, or I'm a biphasic sleeper. No, thank you. I'm not into that, and I don't have time to break up my day and do biphasic sleeping where you sleep a little, wake up, go back to sleep. I was never able to do that. I was not happy about the sleep issue that I had. It was very disruptive and I felt very tired. And the sleep that I was getting just wasn't really good sleep. Because I was getting so little sleep, I started getting really tired and going to bed earlier. The only way I could get almost enough hours, and I still felt horrible to be honest, was going to sleep at 6 p.m. I could not keep my eyes open after 6 p.m. and I am so grateful I don't have that right now. I am feeling so much better since I have fixed this issue. I'm also feeling better since I quit coffee, but I've got to tell you guys that is not the reason for my issue being fixed. I quit coffee a few months ago and it has been wonderful in general because I feel less up and down and less tired during the day, and I feel way more calm and balanced. I didn't realize that it carried with it, kind of like a toxic, unhealthy, almost like anxiety, but a toxic, unhealthy energy. And I no longer have that. But even from the very beginning, the only difference in my sleep that it made is that it made me remember my dreams and have a lot more REM sleep. And I love it. It's wonderful. But it didn't fix my sleep. It just didn't. The only time that it fixed my sleep was the first 2 days. I slept way more. Other than that, my sleep went back to how it was with me waking up at 3 a.m. So I want to clear that up. The coffee did not fix my sleep. Getting off of coffee. I still believe in getting off of coffee, and I'm still really happy with the choice, even though it is such a difficult adjustment. It was my only real addiction. I don't have food addictions. I'm very grateful. I don't have addictions to sugar. Very grateful, but I did have an addiction to coffee. With that said, I hope that gives you a little bit of background of where I'm coming from and where my issue developed and started. Over the last year, I've done everything humanly possible, keeping the most detailed logs. And I've monitored my brain waves at home with an EEG headband called the Muse S to monitor what's going on when I'm sleeping and when I'm waking up and different things. I've worn a continuous glucose monitor, and I've also been using AI to track the data, to look through it and to find the patterns for me, and it's been incredibly helpful. So I met with an old doctor the other day, very respected doctor. I really trust and value his opinion, and I talked to him about this issue regarding people waking up at 3 a.m. Now, he mentioned two different things, but his first guess was, he actually presented it to me, what's your guess as to why this is happening? And I said low blood glucose levels, and he said, yes, right on, that is it. That is the major issue. There is another alternative issue for some people where they could be dealing with hormone-related problems. But in this case, what I've noticed is that there are a lot of people eating very, very low-carb, keto, or carnivore who are dealing with this exact issue. And I mean people, men, women of all ages. So because of that, it made me kind of look past the hormone component, which is important. It's important to get your hormones tested and to look into that, because that too, especially for women, that too can cause these types of sleep issues or insomnia issues. I did do an experiment on myself for several months where I wore a continuous glucose monitor. What I learned is that many times, not every single night, but many times when I had my worst sleep issues where I just felt the worst and I woke up even earlier than 3 a.m., I was experiencing hypoglycemia or low blood sugar levels. Since that time though, I've tried a lot of things to fix it, and it took me a long time to get things just right. So the first time I noticed that my sleep was fixed and I got proper sleep and I slept past 3 a.m. within the last month and a half was related to something that I ate. So normally I've finally learned to eat, my last meal a few hours before bed. It could be 2 to 4 hours. I don't like to go like 6 hours. Sometimes I've gone 8 hours, but that doesn't seem to work well for me personally. What I've ended up doing is after I eat my small to medium sized meal at night, be careful not to make it too big or this also could disrupt your sleep. But after I have my last meal and after eating that, what I've discovered is adding in some type of fruit is what has fixed it for me. So for me, what I like to do is I like to eat extremely low carb during the day. For the most part, I stay in a good level of ketosis, and especially because I'm active and I also work out. And then in the evening, what I do is for my last meal, which is a few hours before bed, I eat a small to medium portion. And then with that, or right shortly after that, I will eat some type of carbohydrate, which is often a fruit. One of the fruits that has worked the best for me is frozen peaches. They do not taste very sweet, which is good. They also have fiber, which I personally find helpful. I know it's an offensive word to some people, but I do find fiber to be really helpful because I've noticed one other issue with people who have this waking up issue is that they're often also hungry. Not everybody has this, some people do though. And if that is another issue of yours, it does help some people to incorporate foods that have some fiber. It kind of slows things down, and it also is a buffer for your digestion. For me, the peaches do that really well. I personally don't want the things to be really sweet, and the frozen ones just aren't very sweet. Personally, I feel like I do pretty well fixing my sleep if the carbohydrates that I have do have kind of like a moderate or medium impact on my glucose levels. I do not want something that's going to spike my glucose and drop it really fast or rapidly. And just by eating that fatty meal before having these carbs, which this piece of fruit or even it could be some carrots, whatever it is, if you're wondering how something's going to affect your glucose levels, it kind of depends on how ripe the fruit is and also how much you eat. So if I do notice that something is a bit sweet, I just won't have as much. I'll just have like a small serving. Another way, in addition to your initial meal being a buffer for your blood sugar, the other thing that is a buffer is if you can eat that piece of fruit with something to buffer its effects, which could be something that is fatty, could be something that has fiber in it. For example, I will eat my peaches and I'll make a bit of a dip out of coconut butter. You have to know kind of how to work with the coconut butter because it's pretty hard as a rock solid when you get it. Now the thing that's great about that is it is very fibrous, and I mix some coconut butter. I have to heat it up to kind of melt it, and then I will mix some coconut milk in it, and I make a bit of almost like a frosting or a dip for the peaches, and it's just an additional buffer for what I'm eating, and it also tastes really great. If you wanted to, you could add a little honey to it, but you don't need to. I do that once in a while because it really just doesn't taste very sweet at all. If the peaches were sweeter, then I definitely wouldn't even add honey to my little dip, but I add it sometimes just the tiniest bit. Now, some people do find honey to be extremely beneficial at fixing the sleep issue that they have overnight. Some people prefer bananas. If I were to ever do that, I would just eat the smallest amount because I just feel like there's a lot of sugar in bananas.